30? Okay.
We're supposed to be there.
Okay. No, that's
It's enough time to walk the field,
yeah.
check nets, especially captains have it 10 minutes before game time, 45. They just take checks too, so.
Yeah. All right. So thank you, whether you're on YouTube channel. If you are on the YouTube channel, put your name in the text box. That way we know that you are here at the beginning. If you are re-watching the video on YouTube channel, what you want to do is comment your name in the box so we know that you watched the film. And that way you could get credit. So part of USA Lacrosse is so many training hours, and we want those that have watched the video either live, recorded, or here in the room get credited for those training hours. But this is women's lacrosse practice number 1. So welcome. The topics we're going to cover today pretty much came from Rule 1 and Rule 2, but pregame duties, field equipment, 2-person positions and areas of responsibility, and that should be 3-person positions and areas of responsibility. So we got some diagrams that will be posted, and we'll draw some stuff here as well. So I'm going to talk about pregame duties, the first 2, and then I'm going to hand it off to Tom. But confirmation communication, so we sort of talked about this before. So whether there's 2 officials listed, 3 officials listed, the referee will be the highest level of USA Lacrosse rating, ideally. But really, once the game starts, everybody is equal. But before the game, whoever is a referee, we expect them to confirm with the crew, confirm with the site contact and coaches, so everybody's on the same page. All right, so if you are the referee listed in arbitersports.com, we want you communicating game date, game time, game location, arrival time. That way, if there are changes, it's through the referee. So arrival time is 30 minutes prior. So be in uniform on site 30 minutes prior to the game. We'll ask the referee just to report back to myself if somebody's late. We understand life happens, but if we're late game 1, late game 2, late game 3, we have to set standard of expectation. The best way to avoid being late is being early. So don't put yourself in that situation. So Tom, I'm going to have you come up and talk about how you check the field, how we check the nets, how we check the sticks, and then captains and coaches meetings.
Sure. My name is Tom Koss, and I've been officiating lacrosse for 5 years or so. So there's certainly people out there who have done it longer than I have, but in our area, we just don't have that luxury of a lot of experience. So for our pregame, you guys jump in if you feel I misspeak or leave something out. Once we arrive on site, like Sean mentioned 30 minutes before, one thing that we want to do is walk the field. And what that entails, as it describes, is we are walking the field to ensure that the field is marked correctly. So we see the restraining lines on the field. We need to make sure that they are in the correct spot. And one thing with all the fields in this part of the country is they're essentially all on a football field, and all a unified field. So they're not a true women's lacrosse field. They're kind of a hybrid, right, of what can we do to get a lacrosse game in with the resources available. So one thing we want to do is make sure that the goal is in the right spot, and that's going to be on the 5-yard line, right, Abe? Correct?
Depending upon which field it is, yes.
All right. So then from there,
General, though, we're 5-yard line.
We're at 5-yard line, because almost all of our fields are unified fields. The only places that have their own field would be Duchenne. That's not a football field, but everything else is well, that's a. It's marked incorrectly, but so we have our midline on the 50-yard line, typically if we're referencing the football field. Moving down from there, we're going to hit the restraining line at the 30-yard line. And what we want to do with that, with our field instruction or field inspection, is make sure that there's cones on either end of the field marking the 30-yard restraining line. Because there's so many lines on the field, we have to do something to distinguish it from the 35 or the 25. So cones are placed on either end of the 30-yard line to indicate it's the restraining line. Next thing that we're walking down to is the goal. Typically, we want to make sure that that is placed correctly on the yard line. And we're also inspecting that goal to make sure that there's no holes in the netting. That does happen. It's not a bad idea to have some zip ties in your bag. The schools will typically have those if they need them, but in case they don't, it's good to have a few just to put some extra reinforcement in some of the weak spots of that net. And that goal line is on the 5-yard line, and so the yard line itself is 4 inches wide, but the goal posts are not 4 inches wide. So we're making sure that the back of that, or the front of the goal, or the back of the goal is on the back of the goal line. So if we have, we'll draw this field out here. If our goal is placed here, here's our goal line, and zooming in, that line is 4 inches wide, and we're going this direction here. Here's the front and the back. We want to ensure that the goal post that we're lined up on the back of that line. Right? And then any goal, the ball has to completely cross that line for it to be a goal. It's not like football where if the football touches the goal line, it's a touchdown. It has to be completely inside of that line. All right, so we're walking the field. Those are our two biggest things that we're checking.
If you're in the lead position, one thing you want to look forward to if you're shot, like you both hit the pipes and the ricochet. It's like you're looking to see if the net move, because if the nets are put out correctly, the only way the net is moving is if the ball has crossed on the other side of that vertical plane that we're talking about. If you don't see the net move, again, it doesn't mean it's not a goal, right? But it's like the net moving and a ricochet out means it's catching a pipe. But if you see that net pop, is usually the indicator that all that ball crossed over, and then you should call the goal.
Yep. So ensuring the restraining lines marked correctly and that the goals are safe and set up correctly, those are the two biggest things that we do. The other thing that we're doing when we're walking the field is ensuring that we have a properly marked substitution area. And again, that's on midfield, and those are marked with cones as well. So if a player is coming into the game, they have to enter through that substitution area, and the player coming off the field has to enter through that substitution area as well. This isn't a hangout area. Like, hey, when we get the ball, I'm going to go in, so I'm going to go stand there. That's incorrect, and that is technically a violation. It's imminent. When the substitution is imminent is when they go there. So we can't just have players hanging out there. And the reason being is that's also where the ladies go when they're serving a penalty, is in that general area. So one of our responsibilities during the game is to count players. They can only have 12 players playing the game if they have one player out serving a penalty, she counts as one of the 12. And if we have substitutes just hanging out there, now we got 13, 14 players. So we don't want them in that area because it screws up our count. It's kind of.
So are they supposed to hang out outside of it, and then as soon as it becomes imminent, they can move in and then sub in and out?
Correct.
Like, is that how that works?
Yep. Yeah. So coach says, hey,
Get ready.
Susie, you're going to go in when we get the ball. She hangs out
Hang
here.
out just outside of it.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
You get the ball. She comes over here, waits for her teammate to come, and she can't enter the field until the player that she's replacing has left the field. So and they can be anywhere that substitution area crosses midfield, so they can come in and out anywhere on that. And that's going to happen, especially if they're transitioning from right to left. This player can be here, the player coming in, player leaving can enter in through this spot. They don't have to, most of them hit sticks when they do it. They don't have to, because now they just save themselves 10 yards if they don't do that. Okay. Also, when we're walking the field, player safety is a big issue. So we're ensuring that there's nothing within 4 meters of the field. That's kind of the boundary that's set. So if we have fans setting up lawn chairs on the opposite side of the field, which is every game, we just want to make sure that they're back enough. And generally speaking, we're there a half hour early doing our thing. The fans or mom and dad aren't there yet. A couple of them will be. If we get a couple of them to back up, then the rest of them will follow suit and be there in the right spot. There are a couple fields, one in particular in town, where it's also their soccer field, and some of the soccer goals are not movable. So they're right on the end line. So we're inspecting that, and we'll talk about that during our pregame meeting with the coaches and players, how we're going to handle that. But ourselves, we'll talk about it beforehand, and generally speaking, if the ball is near that soccer goal, the post, and there's a single player trying to make a play on the ball, we're not going to do anything, let them get it. If there's more than one player contesting that ball, we're going to shut it down and treat it like the ball went out of bounds. We don't want the players running into each other and bouncing their head off of that soccer goal. Some other fields where you can move the soccer goals, we will physically move them if they haven't done so already. A lot of times these club teams don't have access to the field much earlier than us, so they haven't had a chance necessarily to take care of those goals. All right, so that's generally speaking what we're looking at when we're walking the field. Abe, Cindy, did I leave anything off with that?
I think just from a goal standpoint, some teams have proper steel goals, so not that big of a deal. Some teams have rage cages, which are the collapsible goals. Some are in better shape than others. So I just want to inspect those, make sure that they're in.
Some are warped.
Yeah.
So they don't set level.
Yeah, if you can bend it back to straight, that's good. If it's a windy day, you might need some weights for the back of the rage cages just because they're not heavy enough and you get a good gust of wind and falls hits a goalie in the back of the head or something like that. So
Is that something as a supervisor I should reach out to the teams now and say, hey, this is brought to my attention. If you have time and resources, can you get goals that don't?
most are fine. Yeah. Well, again, but if some teams just have those rage cages, which are the collapsible ones, and that's because to Tom's point, they don't own the field that they're on. They're renting it, and they got to bring those cages in, and they don't have a place to store them. So, like Millard West, for instance, they've got a big field. They still play with rage cages because the school won't give them a place to put steel cages. So but there's also weights for the goals. So most of the schools that use that, so Westside does it too, honestly. Westside doesn't have, do they have steel cages now? They might have steel now.
Yeah.
I don't think they used to. But in either case, there's usually some soccer goal weights around or something like that. You just throw in the back and then it's fine. Or you put a bucket of balls back there. And
Yeah, that's pretty typical, is putting a bucket of balls on the back of the net to make sure that doesn't.
It doesn't
tip
happen
in
a
the
lot,
wind.
but
No.
depending upon on windy days, if the wind's going the right direction,
Yeah.
you will see some goals just tip over. On
This part of the country, you'll see that, those windy days.
Tommy might just want to talk about how they'll have balls throughout the inline.
Oh, yep, good point. So Cindy mentioned having balls placed around the field. So generally, and correct me if I'm wrong, one of the goals of women's lacrosse especially is to keep the game moving. A lot of the rule changes recently have been pace of play. Let's get it going. So to help with that, balls will be placed a few yards off of the field, like maybe every 15, 20 yards, something like that, so that if a ball, errant pass, goes 20 yards out of bounds, we don't have to run down the hill to find the ball. They just pick up the next ball and go with that. So we want to make sure that balls are placed there. If they're not, telling the home site management, asking them to put balls around the field. And we'll do that on the end lines and on the sidelines. We don't do it in the players area, but we'll do it down here as much as we can.
And then sometimes throughout the game, you will have all those balls get used up. So if that happens, just hit whoever the site administrator is, just to get some more balls on the end line.
Yep. And also when we're walking that field, I guess we go to the same places all the time, so we know what we're looking for there. But as a new official, there are some unique setups at some of the facilities. For example, the Omaha Eagles, that football field is really condensed, and there's a brick wall on the one end of that field. And every time a game is played there, a ball is shot, passed, whatever, it'll hit that ball and just slowly bounce back onto the field while play is going on. So we just have to be aware of those types of things. You know, what could cause the ball to bounce back onto the field, things like that. And just be aware of the general layout of the facility and any potential issues that could come up with that. But for here in the Omaha area, those are the issues we have, is our goalposts and some brick walls 20 yards off the field that a ball will carry them off of and come back on. All right. So that's our walking the field. Okay. Other pregame duties is when we visit with the captains and the coaches. Like many sports, where we ask that the coaches verify that all their players are legally and properly equipped. And what does that mean? That means that all the field players are wearing goggles, they all have mouthpieces, and that there's no jewelry. And jewelry that's the one that you really have to kind of keep an eye out for. Is, you know, it's not something that jumps out at you. You can tell if a player has goggles on or not, but we don't necessarily spot earrings as well. You know, so when we do our stick checks, that's one thing that we're checking for. But during a pregame, the coaches need to verify that everyone's legally equipped and that they're not wearing jewelry. We remind them to have their players remove any jewelry if they are wearing any before the game.
And takeover jewelry is not.
The only thing that you can do with that is if you have a medical alert or medical ID thing or a religious something that you can't take off, those can be taped up. But earrings, doesn't matter. Nose rings.
Yep.
And
you'll get.
And they freshly get pierced right before the season.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can't take them out.
I had a fall game where girls like, I just got these done yesterday. Great. You cannot play. That is not.
Yep. Yeah. And reason being is you have that lacrosse stick with that nice nylon net. Your earring catches in that net and the player shoots.
Mm-hmm.
There goes your left nostril or earlobe, whatever it happens to be.
Yep.
And during that pregame meeting, we will discuss if there's any specific issues or allowances because of that field. For example, unmovable goals. We will talk about how we're going to enforce that if there's a ball near that goal and there's two players coming at it. Like I said, we'll call it a dead ball and use alternate possession. The next thing that we do during that pregame meeting is ask the visiting team, we're going to flip a coin, heads or tails. The winner of that toss has two choices. They can either pick the goal that they're going to defend, or they can choose first alternate possession. So that alternate possession, not to get ahead of ourselves, is if we have offsetting fouls, we can have alternating possession. If the ball goes out of bounds and we can't determine who that ball belongs to, we'll use alternating possession. The majority of the time, the teams will choose alternating possession versus a goal. And then right after that, typically we'll do our stick checks, right?
You might want to discuss during that time how long that halftime is.
Oh, yeah, because halftime can fluctuate, typically 10 minutes, but if there's something special going on, it can change one way or the other. For example, springtime of the year here, we could have some bad weather coming in, and that halftime may be shortened just to save ourselves a few minutes. Or maybe it's senior night and they're doing something at halftime. So it may be extended or adjusted because of that. But we'll remind the players of that. Early part of the year, we'll also remind them of any rule changes that have happened for the coming year. As the season goes on, we'll just ask them if they have any questions about any rule changes or rules in general. It's a pretty quick meeting to take too long.
As far as halftime and senior nights go, for you, it'd be great if you would communicate with the league that that's not the most acceptable use of time. They can do senior night before, they can do senior night after. Using halftime to do senior night is just because it usually extends it out. It just pushes the game back. Frankly, it's not necessarily fair for the other team. And I think Millard West does it at halftime. I think most schools do it before, and So at any rate, that would be just ideal to have them do it either before or after. Don't really care, but halftime's not necessarily. Yes, it is far less ideal, right? Because they got to bring out a speaker, and they got PA issues, and yes, it's a mess.
Oh, another thing I should have mentioned is we'll visit with the trainers. They usually come up to us and say, "Hey, I'm here if anything comes on or comes up." If there's a threat of weather that day, we'll verify with them that they're tracking lightning, those types of things. And like I said, the trainers are there at the same time that we get there, and they're really good to work with. And so we need to, like if there's an injury, we don't have to wave them on the field. They're coming out there as soon as we stop that play. They're coming on. But there's always a trainer at every game. All right. So our other pregame duty is stick checks, and I did not bring a goalie stick. Abe, I forgot to mention that to you.
That one's the most boring one anyway.
Have you guys ever had to measure a women's lacrosse stick for length?
I
haven't had to.
I haven't had
but that's why we have the little tape measure with us to make sure it's in the range of lengths that the stick can be. But during our pregame stick checks, each team will line up on their own side of midfield, and one official will take one team, the other official will take the other one. We'll do our stick checks. And what we're doing there is a couple of things. The first thing is we're making sure that the ball doesn't sit below the side rail. Like here, I push that ball down so that you can't see the top of the ball. Right? My cover is there. So I just made that illegal, so we don't want that. We would just,
Pockets.
the pocket's too deep. That's what I should have said, yes.
So right now, that's illegal.
Right now, this is illegal
Because you pushed it down.
because I pushed it down.
All right, but most of the time, you just gently put the ball in there and.
We
We do not press the ball anymore.
Okay.
You do not press the ball.
That used to be the mechanic for that.
Yeah.
But yes.
So we're dropping the ball in there. We're getting a visual to make sure that we can see the top of the ball above the sidewall. The other thing that the ball has to do, it has to be able to fall out easily. So we just tilt it. And it also has to be able to fall out of the back easily just by tilting it 90 degrees and rolling out. There are some sticks where I can tell before I even touch it if the ball is going to fall out easily. It's just the design of the webbing. When you put it in the back, they don't roll out very easily.
Usually the one in the front's the bigger one. It's like you will get some sticks occasionally where you're almost at 90 degrees and the ball's still like hanging. And
yeah, it's just the way that the webbing is placed or designed. It pinches between the sidewall and the ball stays there.
In general, nobody's trying to manipulate their stick. It's just.
No, especially that one there because you never on the back you don't see.
yeah.
And the reason that it's a bigger deal in the women's game and that it has to sit like that is because there versus the boys game where there's a lot more contact and they want to be able to keep that ball in their stick a little more easily. In the women's game, there's not supposed to be that level of contact where we have to worry about, shoulder to shoulder hard contact knocking that ball out. Also, if we have the strings from the netting, if they're excessive, they're hanging down more than 6 inches, that's technically illegal. We'll have the players address that as well, tie them up into little knots. If we do have a stick that is illegal, then if it's during our stick check, we'll just have that player stand or we'll tell them, hey, your pocket's too deep. Have them stay there and they can fix it because we want to check everybody else. Once we've checked all the other players, we can come back to that bad stick and see if they've adjusted it and fixed it. If it's still illegal, then that ball goes to the scorer's table and it sits there until the end of the quarter and we can check it again. And they can work on it. They can make it legal. But if we're 3 minutes into the quarter, it's too late. We're only checking those sticks at quarters.
Let's see what else. No tape. There should be no tape on the head. Any tape on the head. So tape can be up to the bottom, but there should be no tape on the plastic.
Yeah, so on the players will often put tape on their stick, kind of like tape on, or rubber or tape on a baseball bat, a little different grip. They can't have that tape up to the head of the stick. It can be on the shaft, but not up on
like
here.
Tom's point on like some of the strings, some players will tape them on the top of the shaft. They can tape them down. The tape just can't creep up onto the head of the stick.
And it doesn't happen very often, but if a stick is deemed legal before the game, the coaches do have the right to challenge a stick during the game. Like, hey, I think her stick is illegal. Or if we feel that a stick is illegal, we can check that stick during the game. They can take a timeout, the other team, and we'll check that stick. If it's deemed legal, they lose that timeout. Just like a challenge flag in football, other sports. If it is illegal, goes to the scorer's table. If they happen to have scored a goal with that stick just now, if the player shoots, scores, we check the stick and the stick's illegal, that goal does not count. And that's not something that we see very frequently here. Maybe other parts of the country you do, but we don't see that here. if we are going to check a stick during the game, and that player is giving us her stick and she happens to pull on the strings before she hands us the stick, that stick just failed the inspection. So if they're tightening up that pocket, they did that for a reason, and we're not even going to check it. It's illegal. So,
Oh, that's why in college, you have to check the ball after every goal, and the girls are required to throw the stick down and replace the stick down after the goal. So if you're watching college, you're like, why are they always throwing their sticks down? It's for that reason in particular. So there's, at no point does anyone think they pulled on a string and that goal comes off the board. But that rule hasn't filtered down to high school yet.
okay, so that is walking the field in our pregame meeting and pregame stick checks. Did I leave anything out of that? That's important. All right.
Oh, maybe I guess, Tom, just make sure there's dots. Some fields do have dots.
Yep, and we're
fields
gonna
don't.
we're gonna have a presentation here that covers the field a little bit more
Okay.
detail. Sure. And we'll leave these sticks and balls here. We can have a practice stick check. Let me unplug it here.
Here. Let's do this. Because you plug theirs into yours.
Oh, I don't have a HDMI.
What
USB-C.
Yep, right here.
Perfect. Thanks.
Let's see if that works.
You know,
Interesting. Doesn't like your computer either.
I can log in to my Google Drive on your computer if we just want to do that.
Yep.
And I'll just
Did anything pop up? No. Da, 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 da.
oh, so
It's still not coming on.
I'll restart.
Riddle me this, Zach.
Because it's doing the screen thing on my computer. When you do that.
Laptop.
What's that?
Spot the laptop thing.
Yeah, that's, I keep on.
Lit up.
Yep. Ah. I haven't turned this completely off. I don't think there's just a bunch of great
I know last time I talked, we were talking about going to.
You want to turn it on?
Yeah.
Were you connected to it now? You?
Yeah, it's right now. It's connected to me.
Can we try this one?
Enabling bright outcomes. No, we're not. This would just, they all stayed there. It's not Apple TV, not Blu-ray.
We can use this.
We're just gonna use those.
Okay, so technical difficulties. We'll use the mat. So again, in general, this is the display for a women's only field, not a unified field. On the unified field, unified meaning it's marked for boys and girls. And like I said before, typically all of our fields around here are on football fields, so there's a lot more lines than what we have here. So we have our restraining lines on each side of the field. Moving down, we see this semicircle here, and that's what they call the 12-meter fan. Yeah, this is a fan. This is a arc, obviously. So our 12-meter and our 8-meter. And what this 12-meter mark, 12-meter fan helps to define is an area known as the critical scoring area. And if we take this region and extend it to the end line, now we're in the critical scoring area. And now we have different enforcements for fouls that happen in that area versus fouls that happen just kind of in the middle of the field. Inside that 12-meter, we have that 8-meter arc. Enforcement is pretty similar for fouls that occur inside of here compared to the 12-meter. But we also have these hash marks on that 8-meter line as well. And when fouls occur inside of this 8-meter, defensive fouls, we'll say, if they occur right in front of the goal, we're going to back up till we get to the first of these hash marks, and that's where we're going to start play from. Think of it similar to a free throw in basketball, and these hash marks are one of your free throw lines. That player gets the ball on one of those hash marks, and nothing's happening until we restart play, and that player can shoot, pass, run in, run out, whatever she chooses to do. And the other hash marks indicate that's as close as any of the defenders can be to her. So if she is on the center hash, no defensive players can be closer than the adjacent hash marks. So we can't have somebody standing right in the middle. And you will see that in the lower level games, it's not something that the coaches really go through as this type of stuff. So we are doing a lot of instructing early in the season, especially in the lower level games, where those players can be. Now, below, here is our goal line. Our goal line is right here. This, we draw that out to the sidelines. That's our goal line extended. So we're extending that goal line to the end, even though it's not drawn on the field. It's not marked. In between our goal line extended and the end line, we see these two dots down here. Not every field has them. Every field should have them. And that's another spot where we can restart play for fouls that occur in this critical scoring area, but below the goal line extended. Now we're not coming out to these hash marks, but we're coming to these dots. And these dots, if this 8 meter extended to the goal line, then it'd be straight down 5 meters, you would find the dots. We also restart play there when a team on offense calls timeout in that critical scoring area, a restart from here. So if we call timeout, if the team calls timeout below the restraining line, kind of in this no man's land, that's where we're going to restart from. If they call timeout down in this area, it's such an advantage to have that ball in that area that we're not just going to start play from right there, but move them down to the dots, and that's where they're going to begin. You'll notice that the 8 meter does not extend down to the goal line, extended like the 12 meter does, but we treat it like it extended down here. So if there's a foul right here, even though we don't have this line, if we have a foul right here, we're coming out to this hanging hash, as they call it. It's a hash without a line through it. So there's no difference between a foul that happens here versus a foul that happens here. And every now and then, if you see a game on TV, they will have this area colored differently, marked differently on the field. So again, a foul happens right in front of the goal, we're backing them up to that 8 meter, and that's where we're starting from. Foul happens between the 8 meter and the 12, we're backing up to the 12, and that's where we're going to start from there. And when we, in a week or two, when we talk about penalties and enforcement, we'll cover that, which ones go where and what do the players need to do. But for today, just talking about the field, 12 meter, 8 meter, goal line extended, the dots, end line. So we spoke briefly about the substitution area right in front of the scorer's table, and that's 10 yards wide, so 5 yards on either side of midfield. Again, those are marked with, the boundaries are marked with cones, typically. Some fields may be marked with chalk or permanent lines on there, but most of them are cones. And we need to make sure that those cones are in place before the game so that the players know where they're supposed to be. The coaching area extends from the border of the substitution area all the way down. It's not like football where it goes to the 20 or 25. This goes all the way down. But the team area, their line, how far down is the team? 4?
Already down. I know they're supposed to be 4 behind the coaching area, if memory serves, but hopefully.
The team area is 15 yards wide.
Team area is 15 yards wide, yes. So it goes from the entry of the penalty box, or entry of the penalty substitution area to the restraining line.
So that's kind of our field. The field, not our field, it's the field. And because most of the fields that we officiate on are also played by boys, there's going to be a lot more lines on there. Ideally, these restraining lines are marked with a different color. Not going to happen where we're at because we're using football fields. They're not going to have different colored lines for us. All right, so now we have our field. We know what the lines are. Now what do? Where are we at? That's kind of we can either work 2-person mechanics or 3-person mechanics. If you're working 2-person mechanics, you're always officiating the goal that's to your right. Okay? So if you're the official on this half of the field, you have this goal because this goal is on your right. Oh, thanks. Thanks. So 2 officials. This official is a goal on their right. That's their goal. This official, that's their goal in 2-person mechanics. Now, when we're starting out the game, we always start out with a draw. That's typically done by the official who's further away from the scorer's table. This official is on the table side, and this official is not. I don't know what they call that one, but this is the table side official. This is the other official. This other official will often do the draw to restart the game or to begin the game. And now we have one official on the table side. This is their goal, it's to their right. So they are going to favor that right side of the field. And what are we doing before the game starts? Well, we're counting players, making sure that each team has the appropriate number of players out there. They can start with less than 12. They just can't have more than 12. And I have had games where coaches intentionally started with fewer than 12 to send a message to their players that you're not bigger than the game. We can play without you. And they've done that before. So
if they start with less than 12, can they just automatically sub them in at any point?
Yeah.
They can just run them on?
Yep.
As long as they stay on sides.
Yeah. Well,
I meant legally.
yes. Yeah. We don't have to. Yep.
They don't have to like call a timeout to add anybody because they started less or anything. There's no.
They have to go through that substitution.
Yeah. Just
Right.
as long as they go through here, it's not like basketball where they have to wait for a dead ball. They can substitute on the fly.
But the person has to be off before the person.
Yep.
Well, but what I'm asking is if they're at 10 people, they can just run on at any point legally. Run when they can. Is what I'm asking.
Yeah.
The exception to that is hands on sticks. So when you're administering the draw, once you put your hands on the sticks, no one can cross the restraining line. No one can sub in. So if they don't catch it, but let's say they catch it, you hear someone. So the reason, to Tom's point, we're starting the game, right? And The table side official is not administering the draw usually because you're kind of observing that penalty area, right? And you're responsible for hearing what's going on behind you, making sure someone's not running on at the last minute once the hands are on sticks, because if they are, then we have an illegal procedure and we're going to go the other
So
way.
it'd be like somebody like the coach telling the player to get in and they're delayed because they're not listening, paying attention.
Yeah.
And then they run on after the official has the hands on
So-
sticks for the draw, then that's.
And then until possession has been established off the draw, you can't substitute either. So that same person then would be sitting in the penalty area waiting to go in because they forgot or they miscounted or whatever. But we're like, yep, hands are on sticks, we're good to go. We counted, we're not delaying this game. That person has to stand there. If they come in and enter the game before possession has been established off the draw, then that's an illegal substitution. Go the other way too.
Yep, and we will cover that when we go over the rules portion of the training. But I specifically put this magnet not right in the middle because of what Abe was referring to. I'm well back. That way I have a better view so I can count all my players. And if I'm short, and Abe's short or the other official is short, we'll tell the coach, hey, you only have 11 or whatever, because we want to keep the game fair as well. We don't want to penalize them for confusion because they just substituted. We want to get them out there. But I don't want to get in here ready to do the draw and grab the sticks right away and the players aren't in the right spots yet, because when I put my hands on the stick, that actually differentiates things that the teams can or can't do. So I delay that until the last minute and step in. The other official, they're watching players on the restraining line to make sure that they aren't going in early, and we'll talk about when they can go in early. But that's their responsibility, watching the restraining line. This restraining line is a little harder to watch with two people, because if we have players down here who are cheating, this official has their back to them, that official is 50 yards away from them. So this restraining line we do a good job of. This one we have to work at to do a good job. Now that ball, we do the draw, the ball goes down. Let's say it goes this direction. So now it's going to this person's right. So this official will become the lead official. And they're going to make their way down to this area. This official is now the trail official, and they are responsible for counting players below the restraining line so that either the offense or defense doesn't have too many players below this line. And they are hanging out, if you will, above this 12. They're not going down here. They're hanging out up here. This official here, the lead official, they want to work to put themselves in the best position to see the ball and to see play. So if we have the ball, I'm going to draw some more lines on here.
And while Tom's drawing lines, I think one thing to keep in mind, that lead official, when you are the lead, generally speaking, you are on ball. And that trail official, generally speaking, is looking for things off ball.
All right, so I just drew two lines on here, splitting the field at the top of the goal circle and in the middle of the field. And USA Lacrosse will refer to these as quadrants. And what you have another magnet? Nope. What you don't want to be is if the ball is in this quadrant, you should not be. You're going to move up there. If the ball is down here, you are always one quadrant away from the ball. The ball swings back up into this quadrant here, you're swinging down below. So if the ball's here, you're down here. Now if they swing the ball over to this side, into this quadrant, You want to be one quadrant away. We don't go diagonal. You come over here. So ball's here. That lead official is in this quadrant. They bring the ball from this quadrant down here. You are sliding down here. So you and the ball don't want to be in the same spot. It will happen if the ball, again, is down in this quadrant and the player's going to wrap around that goal to get a shot. There's going to be a moment in time where you are in the same quadrant as the ball. Just you physically can't move like that without being in the same quadrant as them. But so that's a general guideline, is how you want to position yourself, or which quadrant you want to position yourself. So ball's here, you're here. Ball's here, ball's in this quadrant, you're in this quadrant. Again, just so you're not in the same quadrant. And if the ball is over here, you want to position yourself so that if the player, let's say the ball is here, if we draw a line to the goal and come off at a right angle, not my drawing, that's kind of where you want to be, at right angles to that ball in the goal circle. You want to be tangent, we call it, to that ball player. Sometimes you're close, sometimes you're wide. Just kind of depends on where the ball's at, how the ball's moving. And I imagine it's very similar to basketball or any other sport. You have a better view when you're not right on top of things, right? You want to position yourself so that you're not having to turn your back to any of the action, but still able to see the ball and the action that's going on in front of you. So quite often wider is better on that. If the ball is on this side, as mentioned previously, you're the lead official. You are still primarily responsible for the ball. So you may have to position yourself, not that high, but up a little higher to see the path from the ball to the goal. And the players in between you, you need to be able to position yourself so that you're not blocked out of the play. This, and as mentioned, the lead official, they're going to be primarily responsible for the ball, for fouls in their quadrant. The trail official, they're going to have off-ball fouls, as was mentioned. This lead official, again, we're working to our right. You have this entire end line or sideline. This is all yours, and you have the entire end line on your side of the goal. So down here it gets to be difficult. And that's where you have to work together and trust your partner to help with balls that go out of bounds down here, things like that.
That's good pregame chat too, about just who's gonna, if you do get, especially in two-person, like who's responsible for that, or if I'm gonna get stuck, or give me a hand, or point me a direction if I'm not sure and I'm a little bit lost, because sometimes you're like, gosh, I don't know from where I can see, and you might look up to your partner and be like, go this way.
Because
basketball, we just say help.
Yeah, and because this is
basketball, maybe though too.
What is this? 53 yards from?
Yeah.
That's a lot of area.
Yeah.
Right. So you will need your help from there, and just nonverbal communication with your partner, during the headlights look or whatever you need to give them to help. And if you can't help, we're not going to make it up. We go with alternating possession.
Yeah.
On that
Or like
as well.
sometimes that trail position, I might recognize that it's whether it's a shot or a pass is going to determine which direction that lead official is going to give possession to that ball, right? Because if it's a pass and it goes out the end line, then it's going to go the other way. Whereas if a shot, it's the closest player. So depending upon where I'm at, I might holler, shot or pass. Just again, especially if that lead official might be transitioning or on a fast break, and I have a better angle, just so that way they know what they're going to do next, right? Just help out your part.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if we wanna
Okay.
save 3-person for next week.
Sure, we'll save 3-person for next time, and hopefully we'll get the projector going, and we'll be able to see this on the screen a little bit better with the presentation and stuff. But
Very good.
very high level 2-person.
Absolutely. Those of you, actually, I'm gonna grab that microphone real quick, Tom.
All right, so those of you that are watching live on YouTube, make sure you type your name in the comment box so we keep track of who is doing the training hours during the season when it comes to certification time in March down in Lincoln. If you have not filled, we don't have it up here, do we, Zach? The QR code. So if you have not completed the PSOA team registration, make sure you do that. For lacrosse only, the cost is $0. So it's not going to be anything, but I still need the information to get you into Arbiter Sports for signing and payment. And then the last reminder is if you have not completed the USA Lacrosse registration, you have to go USA Lacrosse. The main thing is insurance. The second thing is the education on there when it comes to the new rules, changes, the video, and completing the test. So we're all ready to go for the season. So we have a little bit more time. I don't want to say a lot more time. Get it done as soon as you can. Our next meeting will be next Sunday, same time, 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, Westside High School, where we'll go over the next few rules and then 3-person mechanics. So thanks for attending here today and look forward to seeing everybody on